a live Q&A, so let me get this mic set up. If you have any questions, give me a go. All right, this first person right here.
I guess just my question, so I can understand this more. What's the next step after this?
What's the next step after this? Well, we want to take, as far as I said, the lean development process, learning from you guys. Anything you'd like to see change, anything you really liked about it, anything you'd like to see added, anything you'd like to see taken out, a wide range of things. And then take that information and help it to shape the script, characters, what happens, and then move to production pretty soon. And as I said, I want to then do a screening event, special screening party.
A short, right?
Yeah, this is a short, obviously, 25 minutes or so.
But look, there's so much to, how many moments do we all have? That we could, all the things that we even mentioned, that we could do for each other, to help each other. Make those moments happen.
Great idea.
My husband and I, when I read this script, I went, we do that. We have a date. And if someone calls and says, can you do it? Can you do it? And I say, I'm sorry, I have a commitment. Yeah, and you do. Yeah. And that's important. That's very important that you do that.
Hey guys,
Hi.
Thomas, by the way, Emmanuel, by the way.
Hi, Emmanuel.
I was a bit confused, I guess, at the very beginning where I didn't really understand what the setting was. I think after you started talking, I kind of latched on a bit more and really got invested with the characters. Right. At the very beginning, I was not really clear what the setting was. I mean, I kind of understood the coffee shop people you were getting together, but I didn't understand why you guys were getting together.
It's a screenwriters group.
Okay.
Meeting at the coffee shop.
Okay.
So like I'm making my graphic novel epic. He's making his action script.
Yeah, something really meaningful.
Got it. Nicholas
So I asked them if
stuff.
they bring pages, their pages.
Got it.
Yeah.
So initially, I understood it as maybe you guys were all collaborating
Yeah.
on a specific project.
And it's in the
No, there was-
morning, like before we go to work. Kind of thing.
Okay. Well, great work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, actually, my question is very, very similar to that. I was just having a hard time following the storyline as well. You're collaborating, you're trying to figure out which script to go with or whatever, but then you're bringing up moments. Did it evolve into, let's just help each other's personal lives and make more moments, or did it evolve in, that's going to be your script? That's kind of where I got lost a little bit. Were you talking about just helping each other make more moments, or were you talking about actually making this be your next script as far as moments? I got lost.
Yeah, it was kind of a mix of both. I mean, the character mentioned that he's had this idea running around his head for quite a while. It's not even totally a script idea, but it was a unique idea. And when I came up with the idea for the script, it was the first thing that posed in my mind was that thought: can we create more moments?
So where does it go from there? I mean, if you saw this, I mean, is that the in totality what this short would be, or would it keep going if you made this into more?
One of the thoughts that I have is that I would like it if it does spark with people out there, and they're interested, they're intrigued by it. They think, what moments could I create in my life? I want them to be able to go to the website as well and have an ongoing discussion about it. What moments I've had in my life, what can I create? And maybe other people can chime in as to what they've done and how to help other people, an ongoing discussion. It then opens it up to potentially, another segment with these characters. And so it kind of leads to all those potential things.
Gotcha.
And also, one of the things I want to do is, through this process, and this being the first night, is just as important as getting your feedback. In today's world, looking at the business paradigm of film, there's so many options now for entertainment. Whether it's smartphones, and tablet computers, and your laptops, and all that stuff. For filmmakers to be successful, they need to learn how to create engagement. And so my hope is that not only in getting your feedback tonight, but also starting that first engagement, where I start to build, hopefully, an avid fan base that can become our evangelists, as they say in the startup world, our first adopters, and then begin to grow that audience and grow that. And then maybe after we've done that, then do a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo Because so often people will do an Indiegogo campaign, and they put it out there, it's for 30 days, 60 days, and it just bombs, because nobody knows it. You're starting from ground zero. So I'm trying to start ground zero tonight, and through all the social media I've been doing that leading to this, and then build that audience. And so, and then I want to do future projects. If we can generate interest tonight, generate interest with the live audience now, so with the blog, and we have all of this recorded. I want to then, if they would like to participate, be a part of helping to shape how our movies are made. Do that with our next film project. Like Kareem was going to do it for the next project. He told me about his script. I won't say what it's about, but it's a great story. And so really start to develop that fan base. I hope it can grow into something special. And also, when this film is done, hopefully have an established fan base of 1,000. And so then we already have people that are going to buy tickets the moment it comes out. That's the hope.
Next one over here. Daniel.
Hi, Daniel. Oh my God,
It's
it's
going
so easy.
to live feed.
Yeah, you want to hear
Well, I just want to say awesome job. I really enjoyed it, just part of it, sitting here, listening in. It was a really cool experience. Jeff, I'm really proud of you. I think there is something to just that initial, just a process thing, initial transition into what's going on. I kind of picked up on that. I wasn't sure where it was starting out from, so I think that was some good advice. Special moment for me, Jeff, was at Dallas Startup Week. I volunteered at a ton of events and was exhausted at the wrap party when he came up and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And I loved that idea at that time, man. But what was totally awesome about it, Jeff, was that it wasn't just an idea, but you absolutely took action on it immediately. And within days, you were already in motion, setting this thing up and moving it forward. So I just want to say kudos, man. That's the key.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What can we do? How can we make this happen? Jason. Hello? He has a question over here too next.
I'm Rory.
Hi, Rory. You're not calling? I'm sorry, but that's what they do, really? I'm not.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I never really been to anything like this, or I don't know much about, I guess, Hollywood movies, but from a viewer's perspective, I did get what some others have said about that y'all did a great job of the development in a short amount of time and actually seeing the characters and kind of feeling what they're feeling and getting drawn into their stories. But at the same time, I felt like it was very quick. It was very, from meeting these people, and then all of a sudden within like 5-10 minutes, they're talking about serious life issues. Yeah. It was, something that could work, it definitely, but at the same time, yeah, just the setting and bringing people into it and stuff like that.
It's coming back to the setting thing,
Yeah.
because you don't know what we're doing,
Right.
how long we know each other.
Yeah, because that's important, I think, to know that this is a core group, and I'm the interloper.
Yeah, and y'all did a great job through how y'all talked about it to kind of bring people up to speed, but at the same time, I feel like it could be potentially beneficial to show like the bad moments, like sitting at home alone, or
A visual?
having a fight with your husband, or
Some visual that
visual aspect possibly.
recall and show it.
Yeah, so great job.
Thank you. Kareem wanted to respond to you, Rory. Right, Kareem?
Let's make this, well, they want me to, I'm recording, so.
He's recording.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we want this recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So Rory, one of the things that I did notice that you said is that one of the concerns that I had as well. One of the things is that since it's a script and all we have is a monitor, do you think the visuals of where they are would kind of bring out and kind of put it together and connect the dots? Because we're looking at it, we're disjointed to a certain extent because we're looking at people reading at the table.
Yeah.
But if we're at a coffee shop, would that kind of bring in would it kind of give you, would it flesh out the scene a little bit more and say, okay, I don't have to concentrate on where they are, I can see what they're saying and kind of put it together.
Like if y'all did it at a actual.
Well, that's where it's going to be. So I'm just kind of, could that kind of level it out for you a little bit?
Yeah, that would set the scene a lot. I think, it was just, it's the
Sure.
matter of.
Would that, and for everybody else that mentioned this, what do you guys think as far as if you kind of go into the context of it being in a coffee shop and,
And maybe it's,
He raised his hand.
go ahead.
Over here.
Okay, I'll pass it around or
To answer your question before I get to mine, I think for me it's easier because I go to a lot of networking events and I do a lot of events and do meet people at coffee shops. So I got it right away that you guys were, what you were doing, and you were all like brainstorming off each other's scripts and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to say, so maybe someone else's perspective, I just want to say that I got it right away, what you were doing. I have two questions. One is, how does someone get more involved in what you're doing? I know you have a core group of people, but how does someone get involved in what you're doing? Because I think it's amazing. And you and I have talked, but other ways of getting involved. And then my other thing, the moment stuff, and I love it, and I think it could take off. And is it kind of also like how, I don't remember what the movie was, but in the 80s or 90s, would Pay It Forward?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like that thing, and get people like posting on the website, and maybe some people listing moments, and some people putting in how they can help? Is that what you're hoping to do?
I would like to, if we can. I mean, that would be, you know, I mean, that's part of the reason why I wrote it. That's a hope. I feel bad saying it. Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. I can't say that, but I'm sure would like it.
That's your goal, right? Is to get
It would be
people-
great. That would be so awesome. I mean, one of the reasons why I wrote this was because I'm so much Max, okay? Guy.
Right.
Imagine that.
And sorry for anybody who does weddings, but I spent 12 years shooting weddings.
Right.
I love weddings, okay? They're very good. I don't want to do anymore.
Right.
All right? I started to be a filmmaker. I went to film school to be a filmmaker. And you get caught up in the world that you're in, trying to make a living. And sometimes they let your dreams go by. And so what I wanted to do was write something meaningful for this too. And put myself out here. And it seems to have shown some resonance with people with the idea of the story. And so my favorite filmmaker is Frank Capra, okay? He made a movie called It's a Wonderful Life, okay? And, you know, it bombed when it came out, okay? Because he was doing it as a independent at that time. He had gotten free from Columbia, he made that movie, and it didn't do very well at all. And years later, it went out of copyright and started being shown everywhere. And then it started catching on with the world. And so here's this movie made in 1946 that still affects people today, every Christmas.
Right.
I can't say I can accomplish that, but he's inspired me.
Right.
So,
I just love the idea of it. I know we're talking. I just love the idea of it. Of, you know, it's kind of like those things where you can post it and you try to get money, but it's just where you can post with something you need help with. It's like with these guys. I'm putting on an event, a singles event, and I said I'm having a hard time finding men. And Joe reached out to a bunch of people. She reached out to a bunch of people, and it was just like, that's kind of cool. I love that concept. That, you know, just helping people out. And maybe I'm lucky I knew him and I knew her, and they helped me out. But like, I would help someone if I went on your website and I saw someone at a moment, if I could somehow have a resource to help them.
Make your moments.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be money either.
No.
Right.
No.
yeah, it's not.
I can babysit her kids.
Yeah.
So, first, my name's Raquel.
Hi, Raquel.
Hi. I'm not an alcoholic.
What'd you like to be?
She
No, I
is,
just
she
saw
is,
that.
but
Don't tempt me. Okay. So, first of all, Jeff, I just want to say thank you for allowing all of us to kind of be part of your creative process. I know that that's a huge, like, being vulnerable and like putting yourself out there, and I just thank you for allowing us to do this. I think this is fantastic. I wanted to talk a little bit about characters, the character development.
Yeah.
And kind of touches on what you talked about. I think when you said that you are Max, I think we all got it. And part of that was, I think that your character was the most developed because so much of who you are was put into that character. I found the other two characters not as fully developed, and particularly, I forgot, Jane.
Jane.
Okay. So I would love to see a little bit more nuance in the stories of the females. They both had very similar stories that were like, hey, like I'm an overworked wife and mother, and I have problems with my husband. And there's a lot more subtlety, so I found it very hard to relate as a female. And I was like, oh, cool, like Gladys is gonna come in, like maybe she'll have like a little like Rose Dawson story or something. And it's like just the same thing, like my husband's who I am. And
Right.
I would love to have a little bit more diversity and a little bit more nuance in some of the female characters. I think that would
Yeah.
and be a little bit less of the like token like I'm anti-violence in comic books, like
Right.
more or less than those things.
Yeah, in writing that, I knew there's some risk in that with the
Yeah.
female audience, but
She's like, what? Great performance, by the way.
but that's great, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I want to present it tonight, to create more nuance. And then, you know, being a guy writing 2 female characters, there's some strain with that, you know, a little. So that's great to hear that kind of feedback. And I'd like to hear more detailed feedback in the near future from you, maybe online
This
or
gentleman
whatever.
here.
Yeah, the guy in the blue shirt.
The guy in the blue shirt.
You asked for feedback. Hey, I'm
Name is
Joe.
Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I ran a film projector in college. They sat me down and said, scholarships, you're going to give you money to go to college, but we want you on board for the full 4 years. So this is what I did every Sunday, even now Sunday nights. It's my thing. So love film, writing, philosophy minor, and psychology major. So behavior modification is what you guys were talking about, and also the whole sort of where you and I talked about the blue movement. So
Yeah.
there's those pieces to it. Opening scene in my head was either a steady cam or on a track like this.
Yeah.
And it carries me through different people in the coffee shop. That's what I see. Someone scribbling frantically.
It's actually one of the
2
visions I
people
have, yeah,
talking about
creating intro,
something.
yeah.
Okay, good. So you're the most important. You're the most interesting, open-hearted people, and this is your coffee shop. This is sort of your, that booth in Happy Days where they all hung out. That's,
That's why they got
that bar,
served
that's-
coffee.
Right, that scene in the bar, right, that scene in the bar in How I Met Your Mother. I mean, that's kind of where I'm moving into your bubble. So I just wanted to kind of give you what is in my mind about where you guys set up. And everyone's kind of superficial and not doing as interesting things as you are. So that might help me feel more connected with you in seconds into it. The other piece is you might somehow open in the scripting. You seem to segue, and we were supposed to assume, and we might not should, that we know kind of about how to implement, go from the I wish I had more of to here's how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you want to refer to authority and say, oh, there's so-and-so expert study, or I read something in a business journal or whatever, behavior modification process, but you might find some kind of way to reference that. And lastly, there's a film that was fantastic called Mind Walk. That's just about like 2 hours of people walking on the beach and talking about like major, heavy, large philosophical concepts. And you might watch that or refer other, or even just call a philosophy professor. I've got my old philosophy professor from college. He's written several books. He might time him. And it'd give you a couple of keys that would just be phrases that you could drop in and people kind of go, oh yeah, and you sort of knock down some dominoes. But I think there's some strengthening up you could do right there in the middle that segues into that part where you fake, just before you fake, where you guys are taking action and kind of do things and create that. I don't know if this is going to be useful, but
Well,
there's that.
actually, how I came up with the idea for the script is not quoting a type of person you're saying, but there's some similarity. I was watching Brian Tracy, who's a very popular speaker and consultant for companies, helping them on areas across the board. And he was talking about how you can achieve success with predictable results. By doing certain steps, you will achieve success, just like a formula. That's when the idea popped in my head. I thought about that special moment that happened for me when I wrote that comedy sketch and people just burst out laughing and started laughing. And I thought about how few moments I've had and like to have a whole lot more. I've been doing pretty good the last 3 years, but in the past I certainly haven't felt that way. And so I thought, man, what if I can create more special moments of mine on a regular basis and with mathematical certainty? So that's
Two things to respond to something you said, and I think there's something that's missing in the film that you just put right there on the microphone a few minutes ago. You said, I've made films for, or I've done weddings for 12 years, and I'm done with that. Was there kind of an energy around that? Right? I think that might belong in the script. Like the way you said that, it just came out so naturally. I mean, that's not acting, that's you, right?
Yeah.
But I also, it's like, wait a minute, he's making moments for these people. He's capturing their moments. So I don't know how to reconcile that. You might have to kind of play with that a little bit and figure out
Yeah.
what you're doing there.
Yes.
And I think that's really,
For me, it
really
was,
pivotal,
side.
right? Yeah.
for me, it was just that I felt that creatively I wasn't expressing myself as a filmmaker by shooting weddings. It's the same thing over and over again. It's a great event, but it's the same predictable thing.
So like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
For them, it's the big moment in your life, and for you, it's Groundhog Day.
There you go.
God, I had something else about figured out.
Sit down.
Remember telling the microphone.
Sit down.
Hi, Bruce, and I'm Al. I was just wondering, because one of the things that I really like, and I was wondering if in the script development, if everything was totally written down beforehand, or in some of the early revisions, if you had done more of, this is kind of general what it is, and you let the characters play off of each other with a little bit of improv, because the dialogue came across as very natural speech, like most people would be talking. And so I was wondering if at some point you had, just left it open a little more to the characters to interpret their character.
I'll tell you part of what happened was, I wrote the script, and then Corinne gave me a bunch of shit for it. So, pardon that. So anyway, no, so in my core group, they said, Jeff, these lines are too freaking long, man. You gotta chop this down. So that was my biggest
People
struggle.
don't talk that way.
So anyway, so she's old, she can say whatever she wants.
I am,
So, no. But, so that was part of the process, paring it down. I wanted to have just different characters at different ages, different backgrounds, to represent, hopefully, the audience watching. That can be me. Yes, some improv. And some of it just trying to hone what is a certain problem. We did our first rehearsal, and I filmed it, the whole thing, looked at it, and I gotta sharpen the dialogue at the beginning. I gotta bring in Max a little more, and they're all kind of arguing about silly movie things. And just creating more detail to the characters. So some of it was me creating more detail in the script as it progressed, and as I talked to my group, and then also as I began to rehearse with actors, honing the script some more, but then also their improv during the rehearsals.
Even now.
So I just wanted to piggyback off what you said. So
Yes.
you went in, and this is the important part of being a collaborator. I mean, a lot of times when you have this vision in your head, you become inflexible. You have this vision, and I got to give Jeff some really great credit on the fact that he became malleable. He became fluid and organic and let it happen. So one of the things that we were trying to accomplish was to make the dialogue ring true. And that's what he was saying. And it was on the nose. It was very on the nose. And that term means, boy, I am so frustrated with my life. I wish I could make moments. And that's how it was feeling. And and the fact is, that's why revisions exist. That's why people do rewrites. And that's why people need to be collaborative. And I give him credit for that, because that's exactly what he did. So the whole process that he had from our group reviewing it and giving him feedback until he's sitting down and hearing the words, and even up until this point, is to make the script ring true. And that's what any creator needs to do, is follow the script. So you're part of a very important process.
This lady's name.
And I ran out of work. All right.
Hi, Melissa.
Melissa.
First, I think you guys did a great job. I mean, I had read the script before because I'm very fond of the actors.
It's not me.
No.
No, oh,
That's a whole other.
And I thought you guys did a really good job of bringing the humanity and the emotion to those characters. I was crying, and I needed tissue really bad. I had to blow my nose in my sweater. But yeah, so really good job. And then the second thing was, if there's trouble, like I didn't experience it, but if there's trouble establishing what you're here for in this coffee shop, I wonder if it might be an idea to consider where maybe Jane's rushing in, her phone's going off, it's her reminder that she's supposed to be at the screenwriters group, and you show a shot of that, and maybe it could establish what your purpose is. I don't know about a sign, like, it would be kind of cheesy that you guys would make a sign that everybody could.
Meeting here.
No, your own personal.
I like the idea.
That kind of thing.
We all look at our
That
phones.
could
10
maybe-
minutes late.
Yeah, you are late, right? So
Yeah.
that could evolve into maybe you show some early stuff, leaving the house, tense moment with your husband or something. Leaving the house, you're like panicking because you have to go in public. I don't know, that kind of backstory could be
I mean, would you guys like to see some backstory or interspersing with some of the visions, like the difficulty that he has, maybe having really agoraphobia, really in so many ways? That would,
Yeah, flashbacks.
flashbacks, okay.
What I was going to comment on that is just something more kind of, I guess, in the lean idea for the table reading. If y'all are in a coffee shop, that would definitely help. But also just kind of with the screen in the background, if y'all have access to projectors or something like that, y'all could have some staged maybe photographs of her in a fight with her husband, him sitting at home staring at the TV screen alone. You know, it could be you sitting there at a wedding, just not looking happy. And so it doesn't have to say the name or necessarily anything, those are just on a slide, kind of in the background. If, you know, with an event like this, you know, people walking around beforehand, they just see those, and it's kind of one of those things they could look for half a second, but when you enter the scene, you already kind of are thinking about it, like, oh yeah, that's right, like you kind of have the background of what's going on.
I have a question as an actor. Did it read that I was listening in on them?
Yes, you
Yeah.
would react to the.
Good, because it's like they are what prompt me to hit the up. I didn't
I
say
got,
that word.
I got that you were feeling, what a shame these poor fools don't realize.
They can make these things happen.
Yeah, that's what I got from
Yeah.
your expression.
And then, why haven't I been? Because I said to him, when am I gonna do something? And they wake me up. Yep. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcus. I'm addicted to Cheese Whiz.
Oh. And help me out.
These are just some observations. Greg, when you were talking about the opposite sex, I really wanted to see some terrible, regretful sadness there. I wanted to believe that, like, man, 300 times I've struck out this bad. In the barbing back and forth with you and Jay, for me, I thought it would have been better, just as an observation, if you were just acting like a misogynist pig. You know, action chicks, you can't really, and then a little more acid on your tongue. Put him in his play. Just kind of come out there a little bit more. Since you wanted feedback, again, observations, not to be mean or anything like that, but I really needed to believe, you almost got there, I really needed to believe your commitment to change the regrets of past actions instead of having a moaning session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really needed to, like, you know, and also, you did in some regards, you know, like change of pitch, change of thought, change of emotion, excitement, fear, all of those things to pull me into the story. You almost had me there, but I wasn't quite there yet.
Okay.
So those are just some observations.
What would take you over the top to have you there before you in?
One of the components that happened to you when you started talking about Frank Capra, you really showed some genuine authenticity right there. That kind of stuff. That
True stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you know, you're in this setting, and you could have been, you know, friends for 10, 15 years. You know, I've got friends. You know, if you heard me talk the way I talk to my friends, like I don't want to be his friend.
Yeah.
And so that real, you know, human condition. But you're still friends when you get up at, you know,
Yeah.
your leader.
Yeah.
So I think, I think that's enough. I can
Thank you, Mark.
Young lady down
Good
here
feedback.
and then back to her. I can see them all.
Hi, my
Hey.
name is Rochelle.
Hi,
Hey,
Rochelle.
Rochelle.
Hi, great job. You guys did a really good
Thank
job. A couple things, mostly about the script and just my opinion, obviously. At the beginning, The fact that it seemed like you were bringing different scripts every week, I didn't really understand why you would be bringing different scripts every week, you know? I mean, if you're working on a script, you're developing that one.
Different.
Yeah.
So just the
action,
verbiage or the way you,
graphic,
yeah, said it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And, sorry, she thinks, we gotta have a microphone there.
That always happens.
Right? So, I thought obviously Jeff, your character, I think, was the most in-depth and fleshed out. I agree with what everyone said. And I really agree with what Raquel said about the female characters, not, especially Jane the whole time, was just kind of like, or what this gentleman just said about having more ass on the tongue, you know, you could tell you weren't digging the character, sort of, and obviously they'll make a difference. But you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you weren't connecting with that character. However, I felt like one of the most powerful times in the whole script, it was really heavy when you guys were talking about your regrets and stuff. And so when she was talking about this other husband, I did feel like that was, I connected with that, and as well with the guys. I didn't connect as much with you. I don't know your character's name, but whatever. We're gonna go with Dave. But anyways, went about the being afraid to leave the house and stuff, and the different comments. I'm moving on from this point. The next point is about the moment talking about the good moments. I do agree with Joe about I want to see this whole whiteboard thing and your whole idea kind of fleshed out if you're going to go that kind of science way, you know. But obviously it's kind of a run through, so you're open to adding that kind of thing, but not like a whole long segment on it, but just a little bit more there. A sharper transition that someone else mentioned from talking about moments in the script to translating that into, okay, we're going to take this into our lives. I know it was kind of there, and you kind of wanted to be both.
Yeah.
But either make it really clear that it's both, or really clear that it's just one. Because audiences can't pick up on those little nuances a lot of times when you hear certain words.
To transition into coming up with a solution to?
When you're talking about, at first when you started talking about the moments,
Yeah.
I understood that you were saying this is not a, you even said this is not an idea for
Oh, I
a
see,
script.
okay, but he was just.
Yeah, so, but it was, yeah, so I'm agreeing with what he said, that you did have that line in there, but if you didn't catch that line, it's kind of like, wait, how did
So
it
you
get
have
over
it
here?
come into our personal life.
To talk
Right,
about the personal life, yeah.
Script.
Okay.
Whether- And then the last point is, sorry, the last
That's
point
okay, keep going.
is
You're
to
good.
get
Good.
to the, talking about the good moments and what the moments you want to see. The three of you each had like 3 different moments, you went around 3 times. I thought that was kind of a lot. Or if you want to do it that many times, build it up. So it's some little thing up to skydiving, up to leaving house, or it was kind of random, basically, all the 9.
Just,
basically,
in film, there's
random.
just a lot more
So I
nuances.
would
You also
have-
very often.
And so then,
see
whenever
with,
we bring
like,
in the
yeah,
lady
and it's
to
understandable
talk about her
with
moments,
editing, the language of
like I
editing,
said,
that people can
kind of
understand.
plot,
It might be a little harder
for you to
to
pick
hear.
that one of all the moments
Live
of the
read to
singing,
do that.
okay, let's start on
But
that.
I think a lot of
You may want to say, well, let's start with the small accomplishable one, or something, you know, to get to that effect. If you're gonna pick that one, or I would love to see you pick a big moment. It felt a little bit anticlimactic if you get all the way here and then you just pick a little singing. Probably you'll go to karaoke and you sing together. So, you know, pick a bigger one. Let's all pull together and help Jeff make this movie. I get you probably didn't want to go that cliche way of what's actually happening, but I mean, if you're started, go all the way through with that kind of storyline, and I don't see a problem finishing with that. So.
Let me ask you, thank you, that was all good, and you're talking about the character
You write terrible.
of, yes, I do. Thank you for telling me. All right. You were talking about her characterization, and so I'm curious to what you mean, because then I can tell you about some of the characterization I had in my mind and how it evolved, and did you want her to be a little harsher at times, or what were you saying exactly?
It felt a little bit one-dimensional. She came in rushed and upset, and she kind of stayed that way the entire through. Even though the conversation topic was changing,
Yeah.
it was like the same reaction to each conversation topic, which you did address regarding you're always shooting things down. So when you said that, I felt a little bit better about how she had been acting.
What I'd like her character to be, at least when I envisioned it in my mind, was, you know, a little harsh, you know, it's just like, stop with this chick, you know, she just, why is she, where's the anger coming from? And being a little annoying, because, well, I can't say it on live television, but I was inspired by a true person. Okay, I can just say this. I won't even say what kind of person they are. I won't say race or gender or anything. Okay, but I know them. And whenever I say something, oh, that won't work. That's not a good idea. Like, have you ever written a story? Have you ever made something? Have you ever, like, what the hell, dude? I mean, miss. And, and so she was part of the inspiration.
I
Or
did.
he
I
was.
got that. I did.
So I think we all experience that friend or person in our lives. Just like they always get to say the opposite, no matter what you say. Well, I just have to.
Then in that case, I would like to see her be more verbally contradictory to the things that you're saying, or as opposed
ain't
to
gonna happen.
the tone and attitude.
What do you mean by contradictory?
She had the negative tone and attitude in all the things that she said. But
Yeah.
I want what she's saying to be actively shooting down what you're saying, if
Okay.
that's the value you want.
Okay.
I have a question. Would you like to see, I want, personally, stepping out of this, would like to find out why he hasn't had a relationship. Because he's a nice guy.
Yeah,
He's a good guy. He's good looking. Well, you think so, of course, you sleep with him. But I can say that.
Well, we talked about this, Jeff. He had a mild case of Asperger's, right? No, I'm joking.
Sure, that's it.
Yeah, there you go.
But I want to see why he hasn't had a relationship. What is he so protective? Is there something like Asperger's?
But isn't the
Functioning autism?
isn't the agoraphobia the reason? Isn't that showing why he's not getting out?
Yeah, she doesn't seem that way with his out with you guys.
Yeah.
Which obviously you're his friends, but he's very like,
See, and we don't know that.
charming and funny,
Yeah,
so
what
it
did
doesn't.
you
And he's funny.
But we don't know that about him.
But wouldn't you know that by now?
Yeah, because we, and
Yeah,
that's
you
a big
get-
step
you
to
guys
a
would know
relationship.
that.
That's how I
We'll
feel
get to you in a
too
second,
about
Joe.
script now.
Raquel wants that.
Hi.
The comment actually that I have is in relationship to that. So, and specifically kind of going back to the setting, and we were talking a little bit about, you know, I think for some folks here, it can be hard to suspend reality in the fact that this is a table reading and understanding that it will be very, very different when you add in the cinematic qualities. You'll understand. I think that you can actually give your audience a lot more credit, and you don't need to do things like flashbacks. Like,
Yeah.
it reminds me of like old Saved by the Bell episodes. It's just, I don't really need that.
Yeah, I think just if I could say step in just real quick, I can't remember who it was, but just in film there's a lot more nuances, and you also very often step into a scene midpoint.
Yeah.
And it's understandable with editing, the language of editing that people can understand.
Right.
And it might be a little harder here in a live read to do that. But I think a lot of that will come to play and it may make more sense in the beginning when we're doing that we talk about our script, and I'm not sure we do.
And I think too, each of the characters I think really did a good job of explaining, at least with the dialogue they were given, sort of what those backstories were. But I think that we can still develop those backstories a bit further. I picked up on the agoraphobia, and I thought it was actually a really fantastic thing. But it was just like glazed over. And it's really subtle, and if you maybe have never met someone who's agoraphobic, or you wouldn't pick up on those sort of cues. And I did find your character to be probably the least developed. Even though I think that Jane's character was not developed, it was developed in the sense that I didn't like the direction. But it still had a little bit more there. And I do think that there's something really, really fascinating about that, especially the fact that like your idea of a moment was doing like a massive festival. Like you clearly have something in your character that would want to be around people. So it makes me think that there was a trigger moment. Like, maybe there was a failed relationship, and that was what brought you into being very reclusive, and that's why you didn't leave your home. Like, there's got to be some sort of trigger there that leads itself to becoming into that place. But I do think that in developing the script a bit and adding a little bit of the backstories and a little bit of that sort of personal touch, not biographical, Like, going back to the notion of like, this Jane was inspired by a real person. Like, that's great, but it doesn't have to literally be, this is that person enacting a person that like was in my life. You can create those same situations, and you can in fact share that wealth a little bit, and so that's not, because it felt at the very beginning like it was a little bit of like this girl going into like this boys club, and it was because there's only other two men there, and you were also on like Max's side, it felt very, like, are we talking about making moments, or are we talking about like not liking Jane's ideas for Nicholas Sparks things? So I do think that your audience will, with the development of those characters and what they're saying and how it's shot, they'll follow those backstories a bit. I think that you can trust them to follow along with that.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, in the film industry, it is a very, there's a majority are men.
Oh, I know.
And so
we can tell in the writing. So, yeah.
Okay,
not in your writing. I mean, in Hollywood in general. Like, as women, like,
I know.
we clearly can tell when there's no women at the writing table, or where there's not a woman director, or there's not a woman producer.
And so I was saying, this is part of what happens.
Yeah.
I think that a girl can feel ganged up on a little bit, and so that does go on. But now, are you saying that her character is a little too one-dimensional, or were you saying what are you saying that you disliked a little bit about her character, and where would you like it to go?
Sure. A couple of things. I do think that she was a little bit one-dimensional. I think that the background stories, like, you have this sort of, Max's character has this really developed background of like, he went to film school and he did this thing and he kind of just found himself in the daily grind and he's lost his inspiration. You've clearly had some sort of trigger moment in your life that has led you to be agoraphobic, and she is just an overworked, stressed out wife and mother. And it's that same trope that we hear again and again and again.
Similar,
And then of course when you bring in another woman, that's an opportunity to have a different perspective and maybe have Gladys have a different story. And it was the same story. Even when you were talking about giving examples of moments, you were like, and you, Jane, like, you want to spend more time with your kids. Like, maybe Jane wants to take a pottery class. Like, or maybe, like, she's clearly, like, in a script writing group, she has a lot more interest. She has a lot more personality. So we can build upon that a little bit. And then in the sort of second addition to that, besides it sort of being one-dimensional, was a little bit in just the exchange of dialogue. It felt, to me, it felt like an easy out to be like, oh, well, you don't like graphic novels. Let's talk about Nicholas Sparks. Like, I just felt a little patronizing, was actually the word that I wrote down.
I like that.
Can you just email her the script? I actually mean that in a good way.
We've chatted about film stuff, but yeah. So I think that there's such opportunity there to bring something in, because you can tell, like, obviously this is a group of creative people sitting at a coffee shop doing something, and I would just love to see a little bit more. And I think also, and this is maybe the direction that was in the script, or maybe it was your own interpretation of it, but there was no softness. It was all harsh, and it was all not even like acid on the tongue and sort of checking somebody and saying, well, like, hey, like, easy with the stereotypes. It was coming from a place of being defensive, and it felt like, why are we having a combative conversation? And for me, it sort of took me out of what was really happening, and I just was kind of caught up in, here we go again with like another, here's like, quote unquote, the bitchy girl.
Bitchy girl.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
That's how I felt.
When she revealed what was bothering her so much, did that help answer some of the questions in your mind? Or
yeah, when she had such a great, her performance, and I couldn't say anything more about how great your performance was, and just how you kind of got quiet, and how you didn't like fully cry, but it was very, very vulnerable and very raw and very real. But I would love to hear more story. Like, what if the thing that was like her moment was just something else? Or what if her stress was she got a really big promotion or something, or she's the stress of running her own company? Why is it always like, I had a child and now my relationship is falling apart? It's something that we hear and we see time and time again. It doesn't matter if you've changed the ethnicity of the person who's playing the part of the woman.
Right.
There's still so many other things that we have going on.
These are common themes that happen with women across the world, but I think that you're bringing up a good point, that balance the character out a little bit more.
Because you've got two women, so you can
And
give them
maybe-
both, you can give them a
maybe
different
Gladys can
story.
be a little more traditional, coming from her generation.
Yeah.
And maybe Jane can reflect.
She's like,
We're not talking about you in real life. And Jane balanced it out a little bit more with more 21st century problems that might happen more often. And yes.
Just
Let's
related
get
to
the
what you just said.
Can we get the microphone over there so the audience can hear that?
I just want to say, I don't want to see Gladys more traditional, like.
Yeah.
I didn't say more. She would stay the same, maybe change Jane more.
Or even the same. I would love to see her more than that.
Okay.
Because
Oh, I
she's
can.
interrupting 3 people's set of moments to say, this is how you fix it. And then she comes in and says, I made time. I mean, that's not, okay, I'll make time, you know, I mean, if she could make time, she could, right, or she would, that's what I'm trying to say. So, if she just had, I'm just trying to say, I agree with her. But I don't want to see Gladys as
She's a reach for you.
what she,
Traditional?
yeah, maybe, not even or traditional, but she's actually traditional, she is mean. She's interrupting this whole thing and she's supposed to be like, boom, I'm changing
Yep.
it, and then it didn't really do that.
What didn't do? What change? What?
When she said, I had issues with my husband, and then
Right.
But we
made
ripped it out.
time. Yeah.
We ripped it out.
I mean, you know, but
So
another
the solution wasn't strong enough that she presented?
Yeah, the solution was not
Okay.
strong enough.
Now okay, now you're answering for yourself, and I'm curious if maybe have some other members in the audience felt that was was it inspiring as a potential solution for marriage problems?
I mean, so, I probably
Oh,
shouldn't say.
I-
I probably should not comment on this because I'm not married, but like.
Yeah, I was like, we're gonna give Yeah, I was like, we're gonna give the last word to Mo. For the sake of time, we're about 9 o'clock or so.
Oh, okay.
I'll go quick. I'm Michael, not
Guys.
Michael. He calls me
Hey,
that,
Michael.
it's my Twitter handle.
I like to hear what
I'm
the
sure
mayor
he's
has to say
lesbian,
about
both
getting
women,
up
so
there.
I'm known to him every time. Scratching bunkers, girl like I'm married. I've been married for 17 years. We have 3 kids.
Yeah.
My wife looks like me a lot. So when you say that there's, that it's stereotypical or whatever, my wife comes in stressed, and there's no doubt I contribute to some of that. and I can see her running off to her buddies. Now, if you guys were 2 women sitting around, now you're my wife getting coffee, and I don't know what they talk about. I have no idea what that, I can't visualize what that is, so it's hard for me to say that that was unrelatable. So I'm, a man, so I don't know, what are we in this film, 40, 50% of the audience? So I'm okay with this. I never got the agoraphobia thing. Sounded way too scientific to me. What I envisioned was the guy in his Batman suit in front of a mirror at the house that was so Comic-Coned out that he was just that goofy, geeky nerd that that's the reason a dude doesn't have a date. I'm just like this superhero nut, right? He's a comic book guy.
Yes.
So it's not as scientific and dark. It's just, he's a goofball, and he has trouble,
And the rest of it plays together with
yeah,
that.
it would have
things
worked,
he wants to do.
But that goes me back to Rory's comment from the very beginning.
Hey guys, I
which
think
is-
what I'm gonna do with that paper thing is, I'll let you say it, it's just like, don't worry about it. Well, I'll just send it online, and they can respond. And, yeah, because this has been great getting this audience, this verbal feedback. And, so I'll just send you that paper later, and you can respond to that.
Okay,
I would really
sorry.
appreciate if you guys fill it out and give me your
Also, don't
feedback.
forget to
Because
plug us.
I do know that some people, aren't as verbose or feeling comfortable in talking to the group, so I know I'm gonna get a lot of other good feedback from people online who might be a little more shy in a crowd.
Don't forget to plug your Twitter, to everybody here.
Okay.
And plug my Twitter, so where they can actually
Your
say, hey,
Twitter?
I'm no fan.
this
Plug my
like
Twitter so you can
Burrito?
see my film. And let me tell you something.
Go for it.
I'm giving you a treat for free. Because it's not about monetizing, it's about getting eyes on a film. And that's what Jeff and I have talked about. And he's like, oh, why do you have to give it away for free? Why do you have to give it away for free? I understand that, and I wish I had all the
I don't
routes
think I
to.
responded that way, but okay.
What did you say?
I don't think I responded that way, but okay.
No, you called me a shithead. But
I did not.
no, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, it's been out. It's one of the first independent films that's how Jeff and I met. And
Yes.
shameless plug.
That's fine.
He
go
came
for
to
it.
me after
Is
seeing
it-
my film. He was lurking in the shadows, and I'm like, "Oh, who are you?" And he's like, "Let's talk." And I'm like, "Oh, let's get some coffee." And I'm like, "All right, let's get some coffee." That's what that gets me.
This is
I'm like,
a
"Oh,
little
okay."
embellished,
I was
but
talking-
okay.
I was talking loud enough for everybody to hear. So, but he said, "Let's get some coffee. Let's do this." I'm gonna make a long story short. He interviewed me. He talked about my film. What, a year and a half later, we started this.
Yeah.
Right? After you saw the film, and I said, "Yeah, we'll see, because I hear a lot of talk out here." And he made it happen. So you got to give this man a round of applause because he made it happen. And I had very little to do with it. He made it happen. He's got me sold. He made it happen. But share our Twitter accounts so you guys could see what he's up to and
We
see
don't
what I'm up
share
to.
a Twitter account, it sounds like. And I'm at Jeff L. Vogt, Jeff. L as in Lawrence, V as in Victor, OGT. And Kareem, what's yours?
At Kazar.
Kazar, how do you spell that?
A K-A-S-A-A-R.
Okay.
And there's a link to my film in my Twitter account.
Yes, we'll write it on the board.
And,
Also, you can follow the film
and follow the film because that's the kind of quality. What Jeff is trying to do is what we've all been trying to do. And he told me that we're entrepreneurs, and I had a hard time accepting that. I'm like, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a filmmaker. And he said, no, we're entrepreneurs that happen to be filmmakers. And so I'm all into that now. I'm all into that now, and that was the catalyst. Him seeing my film was really sold me, and he giving me the feedback I needed, and working to get eyes on the film. So I appreciate you, Jeff. We're gonna have this is gonna be a success. So
Yeah, you can follow the film on Twitter at MMTheFilm.
Hey Jeff,
Yes.
for our help, you might help us with an outline. If you send it out for a response, then we can actually tie into that and say outline, this section, so when we speak to it, you can remind us of where we might speak to, what place. Not like the whole script, but something that breaks out with big pieces, so we're like, oh yeah, there's where I want to talk.
Okay, sure.
Does that help?
Yeah, and I'll talk to you more in person.
Yeah, sure.
very good.
Thank you for all your feedback and for coming out.